Good afternoon, everyone, to March 5th Heritage Kitchener meeting. And I hope everyone is enjoying the very wonderful sunshine that you're having. And you can be glad you're not in Alberta, where the temperature is minus 17, although that's quite warm compared to January's temperature of minus 44. It's very delightful and sharp and refreshing if you like that kind of weather. And I have to say I came back from Calgary on family duty from minus 17 and stepped out and it was plus 17. So how do you like that? This afternoon we have a bit of a change in the order of the agenda. Our councillor members have to leave early, and so we are going to start with item 5, and then we'll work through the agenda. So first of all, is there a disclosure of pecuniary interest and any general nature thereof? Seeing none, thank you. And now our discussion items, which we're going to go to item 5, and this has to do with the extending or extension of the expiry date for listed properties and a request to the province for an extension to 2030. And that would mean to amend the Heritage Act to give municipalities an additional 5 years before heritage property listings expire. We have 36,000 properties across the province that have to be moved from listed to heritage designated. Kitchener probably, I'm guessing we have about 225 to do. And certainly it would expand the time. Now, this information came from the Architectural Conservancy of Ontario, and many municipalities across Ontario have thought it would be very good to request this extension. And I'm going to turn it over now to Garrett, who has more information on this. And with respect to what we can do as a committee, we can comment on what staff is doing and is suggesting. I do believe that it's a good thing. However, I will let Garrett proceed with this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We do understand, and we've received correspondence from the ACO that is encouraging municipal councils to pass a resolution. The notice of motion, or to pass a notice of motion, we don't have a notice of motion on the agenda this evening, so it would not be possible for Heritage Kitchener to pass a motion this evening, but perhaps that it would be possible for one of our councillors to bring it to the March 18th agenda of council, and I would leave it to Councillor Chapman maybe to expand further on that.
Thank you. Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you. So yes, we've got a motion prepared. I guess it could change slightly between now and the 18th, but I wonder if staff could put it up on the screen. So while this committee itself cannot bring a motion forward, I'm happy to bring this motion forward, and Councillor Michaud has agreed to second it as well. And basically, if you go to the therefore clause, it's asking staff, or it's asking the province to give us 5 more years to get through the list of listed properties in order to designate them or not. Right now, I think at the speed we're going, if we're lucky, we'll have about 80 of those properties finished by the end of the year. So there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. And this has been passed by several councils across the province. So it's, it's in keeping with that. So I guess what we'd like from the committee here is just, you know, do you agree if we can endorse it, I guess, or show our support for this motion so that when we do go to council, we can make that known?
Through the chair, I just want to clarify that the committee should not be making any votes on this motion unless a motion to waive public notice is brought forward, as it's not listed on the agenda today. So perhaps the committee members can just provide comments about this motion that is being proposed.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Chapman and our clerk. I wonder, has this information been circulated to the members at all? And I think you've had time, hopefully, to scan it. As it's been pointed out that we aren't able to make the motion, but in other words, we can suggest our support or comments if you have them. So, first of all, are there any questions for staff from committee members? Yes.
Yeah, no, it's not a question, but I just might add that this will be submitted on the 15th. So if anybody wants to reach out to me between now and then, that would work as well.
Are there any other comments? I just would like an indication if you support or think this is a good idea. Yes, Peter.
Yeah, I would like to express my support for extending the date for the designation of these properties. When the More Homes Built Faster Act first came in, and there was this clause about the sunset for the designation of properties of interest, I can say I was not in favor of it. I can't say that I have the easiest relationship with the More Homes Built Faster Act, but now I can see that there is a positive benefit from it in that the number of properties that are now being designated and afforded protection under the Act is happening, and that's a very positive thing. And it is something which is a positive result from the actions of the More Homes Built Faster Act. And so extending the date would just allow more time for staff to do the difficult and extensive work of working through all of these properties. And when we participated in our small way in trying to assist staff in helping to designate these properties, you get an appreciation for the amount of work that has to go into every single property that comes forward. It's quite amazing. So I think it would be very advantageous to extend the date on this. I think it'd be great.
Thank you, Peter. I wonder if you have any comments, Natalie?
As someone who also just very recently came onto the committee, it was very shocking to hear that we only had a 2-year period or whatever the amount of time was. So it would be very nice to have this extension provided, for sure. Definitely in support.
Ilona?
I'm also in support of moving forward with this motion. We have seen how much work goes into the process of designating properties and the jewels that are still out there that, we still want to consider. And I definitely think that given more time, we will be able to do more extensive review and include more under the designation. So I'm definitely in favor.
Thank you, Ilona. Donnie, any comments?
Yeah, just like Peter said, it works great because we were able to designate a lot of these homes quickly. And I think city staff were also impressed with how the Heritage Committee was also able to work quickly and help them make it a much easier process. So yeah, I'm definitely in support of it.
Thank you, Donnie. Councillor Michaud.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, to Peter's point, you know, more homes built faster. This is kind of the silver lining of it. We've got heritage buildings now preserved, 80 of them. When I started on my first term in council, I don't recall ever having an initiative like this. So you know, I commend staff to getting this going and everyone who worked on it so hard. So I'm hoping that this motion will be successful at council.
Thank you. Thank you. And I do appreciate you, each of you, expressing your interest and telling staff that it is a good idea to continue on. I do believe this is important, that when this motion going to council and our councillors have to present it to the council, that they're able to express the ideas of the committee and the support. So, Councillor Chapman, I understand you're going to be presenting at council. Do you have any other questions or requests of the committee?
No, I don't. I appreciate your comments and your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, staff, for drawing this up. So we'll now turn back to the regular report. To 4.1, which is the Heritage Permit Application, HPA 2024 IVs, to 1385 Bleams Road, removal of chimney and fence. And that is DSD Report 2024-088. Diksha Chowdhury will provide a brief presentation and overview. Questions for staff will be held until after the delegation. Thank you. Diksha?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the first item on the agenda is the heritage permit application for the property municipally addressed as 1385 Bleams Road, located on the south side of Bleams Road between Fisher-Hallman Road and Abram Clemens Street. The property is designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. This permit is for the removal of the fence and the chimney. The fence is a wooden post and rail fence that fronts onto Bleams Road. The fence is in extremely poor condition. The wooden posts have rotted inside out. Parts of the fence are missing, and some parts have already been replaced. The repair of the fence is no longer possible. Staff have had additional engagement with the applicant and the heritage consultant as to whether it can be salvaged, and because of the poor condition of the fence, it can't be salvaged either. Furthermore, the portion of the property where the fence is located is going to be acquired by the region for a future road widening. For these reasons, the fence needs to be removed. The chimney is also in poor condition, with pieces of bricks falling off in some places and in some places separating from the stone facade. It should be noted that the chimney is not protected by the designating bylaw because only the stone facades are designated, but its removal could have none to minimal impact on the rubble stone facade, which is protected. The applicant intends to conserve and restore the rubble stone facade, but the extent of that work, if it would even be required, can only be determined once the chimney has been taken down. The applicant will be coming back to the committee with another heritage permit if required, and they intend to conserve the facade as is. That concludes my presentation. We do have the heritage consultant here to answer any questions that the committee might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Diksha. And representing the property owner, heritage consultant Owen Scott, CHC Limited, is here. Do you have a presentation, or do you just wish for questions?
Just, Chair.
All right. Are there any questions for Mr. Scott? Yes, Alona.
So I just have a question about the fence itself. If it cannot be salvaged, is there any consideration being given to maybe moving the fence to a different location on the property and just replicating the cedar posts that are being used? Is
yes.
that being considered at all?
It would have to be replicated, and it would have to be moved, obviously, back out of the new right-of-way for the road widening. I'm not really sure whether the fence has anything to do with the originality of the property. We don't have a date on it. It doesn't appear in some of the earlier photographs, so it's obviously came a bit later. I think if we were kind, we'd say it's a modest kind of fence. I don't think it really adds to the property, to tell you the truth. And I don't see it as a heritage attribute that's worthy of conservation.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comment? Yes, Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, also about the fence, but more, my thoughts are, will this fence be replaced with some other fence at some point?
Sorry, I
Is
didn't
the
hear you.
plan to replace this fence closer to the property?
I'm sorry, I still didn't hear you.
Is there a plan to replace the fence
Not
at
to
a
my
later
knowledge.
date closer to the property?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Although, Mr. Scott, you have an impression, and by your expertise, it seems as though you don't regard the fence as being of importance. However, for many of those in the community who have driven past this property and have gone to the school, the fence, it makes them think of an earlier time of the school days at this particular property. And as Ms. Bodenhofer, Ilona asked if there wasn't a place, I would really be pleased to see if in some way around a garden on the property that is left, that something could be replicated of that fence. And I do know that when the Bridgeport Bridge was being rehabilitated, there was a place through the Mennonite community that those type of fence posts were replicated and put there. So perhaps the owners and yourself could give some more thought to it. Those are my comments. Are there any other questions for the delegation? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Scott.
Thank you.
Now, do we have questions for staff? May I ask staff, what have you done to pursue, shall we say, replication of this fence, or if it can't be replicated or saved or what, with respect to the salvaging of the material? Has there anything been explored on that aspect?
Through you, Madam Chair, so when the proposal for the removal first came forward, that was when the HIA for the zoning bylaw amendment application came to the committee. At that point, there were comments that salvaging should be explored. Staff did go back and have additional engagement with the applicant to see if that was possible, and we were informed that that wouldn't be possible just because the fence is in such poor condition. It is staff's opinion that replicating this modest post and rail fence in another location won't necessarily maintain the cultural heritage value of the property itself, and it would also be falsifying heritage, which is not recommended best practice. I also should point out that the reasons for designation of this property relate to the architecture of the former schoolhouse and the historical value. So removing the fence shouldn't have an adverse impact on the reasons for designation. So those avenues have been looked at, and it is staff's opinion that the removal of the fence would be the best option.
Thank you, Diksha. So I will read the recommendation, and then I'll ask for someone to recommend it. That pursuant to Section 33 of the Ontario Heritage Act, Heritage Permit Application HBA 2024 IV002, as outlined in Development Services Department Report DSD 2024-088, be approved to permit the removal of chimney and the fence on the property municipally addressed as 1385 Bleams Road, in accordance with the supplementary information submitted in this application. Who will move this recommendation? Donnie? Donnie, thank you. All those in favor? Motion carried. So this will be given to staff, delegated approval authority. Thank you. Item 4.2. Heritage Permit Application HPA 2024 IV-003 300 Joseph Shirk Crescent, one-story rear addition and two-story deck, DSD 2024-090. And Jessica Vera, our Heritage Planner, will provide a brief presentation, PowerPoint, and overview. Again, hold your questions. We also have the building contractor here in attendance to respond to questions from members. So Jessica, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as noted, this is a heritage permit application for 300 Joseph Shirk Crescent, designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act through designating bylaw number 2003-179. So the application is proposing the demolition of an existing rear deck and concrete slab in order to facilitate the construction of a rear one-story addition, which, due to the sloping topography of the site, will be at basement level. After the addition is constructed, the deck will be reconstructed back to almost its existing condition with just a slight change to the previous footprint. In reviewing the merits of this application, Heritage Planning staff would note the following. The heritage attributes identified by the designating bylaw relate primarily to the original farmhouse as well as the detached drive shed that are on the property. The deck and patio that are proposed to be demolished are currently located against an existing rear addition, which is not part of the original home and is not identified in the designating bylaw. This limits the potential for accidental damage to occur to the original fabric of the farmhouse. The proposed addition also utilizes appropriate material. It is distinct but compatible in design to the original home, and it will not be visible from the street due to its location, as well as the vegetation on site, and again, the sloping topography. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Jessica. Now, Luke Passmore, Fry Building Contractors.
Hi.
Thank you. And you're here to answer any questions.
That's correct.
Thank you very much. So, members, any questions for the delegate, for Mr. Fry? I'm sorry, Mr. Passmore. Do you have any comments? Members do not have any questions for you. Do you have any comments?
No comments today.
Fine. Thank you very much for coming in. Now, our questions to staff. Seeing none, we'll go to the recommendation of the staff report, and then I will call for someone to move it. And then if we have unanimous consent, it will be taken care of with delegated approval authority. So, recommendation that pursuant to Section 33 of the Ontario Heritage Act, Heritage Permit Application HPA 2024 IV-003, outlined in Development Services Department Report DSD 2024-090, requesting permission for the demolition of an existing rear deck and concrete slab and construction of a new one-story rear addition and second-story deck on the property municipally addressed as 300 Joseph Shirk Crescent, be approved in accordance with the supplementary information submitted with the application and subject to the following conditions. That final building permit drawings be reviewed and heritage clearance provided by heritage planning staff prior to the issuance of a building permit. Who will move this? Thank you, Alona. All those in favor? Carried. Delegated authority will take care of this then. Next, number 4.3, notice of intention to designate 60 Victoria Street North under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act, DSD 2024-089. And for those of you who are not familiar with the address, you may be familiar with the title Rumpelfeld. So Jessica Vera, our heritage planner, will make a brief presentation and provide an overview.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry, we're just having a bit of technological difficulties with the clicker. There we go. Thank you. So this is a notice of intention to designate the property municipally addressed as 60 Victoria Street North, which is a 3-story early 20th century industrial complex known as the Rumpelfeld Building, located on the west corner of Duke Street West and Victoria Street North. It is currently listed on our Municipal Heritage Register, and a review has been completed, and our assessment determined that the property meets 6 of the 9 criteria for designation. So in terms of its design and physical value, this building is a representative example of the vernacular industrial architectural style within the city. It has significant historical and associative value in terms of its connection to the felt manufacturing industry and several important members of the community, including the Rumpel family, who are the original owners and who operated this company for over a century. It displays ties to regionally significant themes, including transportation, the manufacturing industry, and urban development. It does remain in its original location within the Warehouse District Cultural Heritage Landscape, and which is home to several historic warehouses and factory buildings. And it illustrates the connections between industry and the railroad. Finally, it is within a prominent location, and it is a prominent massing and has a close proximity to the street, which can classify this as one of our industrial landmarks within the city. In terms of the heritage attributes, the identified heritage attributes pertain mainly to the original 1913 portion of the building, which was pictured previously on the outside and is outlined here in this floor plan. A heritage impact assessment was completed in 2012 on behalf of the region of Waterloo as part of the concept development for a multimodal hub, which will include the subject lands. And staff from the region are present to obtain feedback from the Heritage Kitchener Committee in regards to this property. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Jessica. And I would ask Lori Wells from the region of Waterloo to come forward. And Lori, you are the project manager for this particular building and area.
Sorry, no, actually, I'm the manager of projects, so we do have another project manager that's looking after this specific project, but Jessica did reach out to us with a letter, so we've been working together on this designation.
Brian, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm here to speak to you about 60 Victoria Street North, which aligns with item 4.3 on the agenda. So if we can go to the next slide. Yeah. So you've already seen this, but the Heritage Impact Assessment for 60 Victoria Street North, Rumpelfeld, conducted by the Land Plan Collaborative Limited. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Let's see if I can figure this out. It identifies that the 1913 portion does have heritage significance and should be designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. The Region of Waterloo agrees and has therefore submitted our letter of support for designation of only the 1913 portion of the building. If you look at the slide in front of you, the 1913 portion is the area highlighted in the pink. Mind you, they both kind of look like pink, but it's to the left of the screen. I'm not going to go through all the heritage attributes because Jessica has already identified those. But I will say that the impact assessment does identify that they're only to the 1913 portion, which is the original factory. If we can go to the next, oh, sorry, that's me. Okay. A few pictures of the heritage attributes mentioned previously. I will mention that the HIA does also state that the additions to the original 1913 portion of the building does in fact compromise the heritage character of the original building. I'm here to seek your support. Designate only the 1913 portion of this building, as that is what was identified in the identified to have a heritage significance within the HIA. This property spanning from King Street to Duke Street was purchased by the Region of Waterloo in 2012 as part of the acquisition to assemble the Kitchener Central Transit Hub parcel. We are currently working through phase 1 of the project, which is a partnership between Metrolinx and the Region of Waterloo, which includes the following. Development of the railway corridor by Metrolinx and the Region of Waterloo to relocate the Metrolinx station to a platform located at the corner of Victoria and King Street. The addition of a pedestrian bridge connecting the multi-use trail directly to the station, construction of a 6-bay bus loop at the base of the station, on-site and off-site parking, extension of the multi-use trail to Duke Street, and construction of 2 tunnels connecting the north side of the railway corridor to the south. Phase 2 includes the design and construction of a transportation hub facility that will be a podium of innovation to the area and include indoor ticket sales and waiting areas. Phase 3 will include further partnerships with the developer to bring mixed-use development to the remaining areas along the corridor. So this is a site plan of phase 1. The proposed bus loop is designed to travel between Rumpelfeld and the rail corridor, making a turn onto Duke Street and accommodating both directions on Victoria Street. Due to space constraints at the site, it would be beneficial if modifications could be made to the newer additions of 60 Victoria Street North. Changes to these portions would create additional space for construction and snow loads, as well as facilitate a more expansive turning radius. This adjustment is crucial to prevent interference with oncoming buses, particularly in anticipation of potential future articulating buses. Additionally, it would address visibility concerns associated with the potential creation of a blind corner. The current status of the building is vacant, and we are facing persistent challenges related to break-ins. A recent incident resulted in significant damages to materials containing asbestos, leading to the release of airborne asbestos particles. Consequently, access to the building now requires individuals to wear respirators for safety. The ongoing issues of smashed windows has allowed birds and other animals to enter, causing biohazard contamination and water damage. Despite our efforts to maintain and clean the premises, the associated costs, particularly security expenses, have exceeded our initial estimates. To address this financial constraint, we propose focusing solely on the preservation of the 1913 section of the building. This strategic approach will enable us to stretch our budget further and uphold the structure to a higher standard, as phase 3 of the Kitchener Central Transit Hub is still 3 to 4 years away. The building is expected to continue to remain vacant for an extended period. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Lori. Questions for Lori, our delegation from committee? Seeing none, I would have a question, Lori, about the potential of maybe reusing that section that isn't the heritage section. There was the different features that have been added on. I know that the region is concerned about climate and the control of carbon emissions. We know that when buildings are demolished, there's a certain amount of carbon that comes off. And do you have any suggestions as to what the region might be able to do with the materials that are not being used in the building that's not proposed for designation?
It is our general practice to reuse building materials. Excuse me. Our contracts do have that provision within them to reuse building materials and divert from landfill. We will also try to achieve the highest reuse on site or in another heritage application. At this time, we don't know what Phase 3 looks like, which is the phase that includes Rumpelfeld 60 Victoria, but it is certainly something we can take into consideration, whether we use it for, a commemorative wall or within the hub itself. We will have to consider that when we're in that planning phase.
Thank you. I just want to alert the committee that this is an opportunity to give feedback to the region, to Lori. This is the opportunity, because when proposals come forward, and perhaps when it comes back to us, it might be a little late in the process to make any suggestions. So are there any other considerations other than thinking about the material that would not be used on site or these other two buildings? Any other comments? Granted, we will have an opportunity in the future but it does help with planning for what needs to come about in that area. And I have to say, it's quite a project to have to come to grips with. Any other comments? Seeing no comments. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Staff, questions to staff. Having been part of many of regional decisions and buildings, I think it's wonderful to see the region coming forward and asking to have the 1913 building designated. It's very positive. So with that, I shall read the motion that pursuant to Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, the clerk be directed to publish a notice of intention to designate the property municipally addressed as 60 Victoria Street North, being of cultural heritage value or interest as outlined in Development Services Department, DSD 2024-089. Who will move that? Thank you, Natalie. All those in favor? Carried. This recommendation, this motion, will go to council for approval March 18th, 2024. Thank you. Going on to 4.4, notice of intention to designate 72 Victoria Street South under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act, DSD 2024-091. Jessica Vera, our heritage planner, will provide a brief presentation and overview. Jessica?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So 72 Victoria Street South is a 4-story early 20th century industrial building located on the western corner of Victoria Street South and Joseph Street. It is currently listed on our Municipal Heritage Register, and a review has been completed as part of our review project. Our assessment has determined that the property meets 6 out of the 9 criteria for designation. In terms of design and physical value, this is a representative example of the Berlin industrial vernacular style in an industrial building. It does display some artistic merit through detailed elements that aren't often seen in industrial buildings of this style, including the entranceway. It has historical and associative value due to the original owner, who was named William T. Sass, as well as the use of the property and the contribution it made to the economic development of the city. Finally, it has contextual value as it remains in its original location within the Warehouse District Cultural Heritage Landscape, which is home to several historic warehouses and factory buildings, including the one that we just previously saw in the last notice of intention to designate. And it also illustrates the connections between industry, the railroad, and worker houses. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Jessica. A nice overview. Are there any questions for staff? Seeing none, the recommendation that pursuant to Section 29 of Ontario Heritage Act, the clerk be directed to publish a notice of intention to designate.
I just had a comment before you take it to the vote. I just had a comment.
Oh,
if I may.
Of course.
Sorry. I just want to say, you know, this building, what I like about it is it's fully occupied and it's been well looked after. So it's so nice to see this coming for designation.
Yes, indeed. And it does have a lot of industrial association with it. It's good. So thank you very much. Sorry about that, that I didn't catch it soon, your arm. All right. Pursuant to Section 29 Ontario Heritage Act, the clerk be directed to publish a notice of intention to designate the property municipally addressed as 72 Victoria Street South being of cultural heritage value or interest as outlined in Development Services Department Report DSD 2024-091. All those in favor? Carried. So it will go to council for approval March the 18th. Thank you.
Sorry, through the chair, I'm not sure if we had a mover for that item.
Councillor Chapman was moving it, right?
Okay. Thank you.
Notice of intention to designate 33 Eby Street South under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act, DSD 2024-094. Jessica Avira will make a brief presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So 33 Eby Street South is a two-story mid-19th century residential dwelling that's located on the southern corner of the Eby Street South and Charles Street East intersect. It's currently listed on our Municipal Heritage Register, and a review has been completed as part of our MHR review project. Our assessment has determined that the property meets 5 of the 9 criteria for designation under Ontario Regulation 906. In terms of its design and physical value, this is a representative and early example of the Ontario Gothic Revival cottage architectural style. It has historical and associative value due to the original ownership. This was originally owned by Henry Eby of the prominent Eby family and founder of a popular German magazine. My apologies, I'm not going to attempt to pronounce that. It does contribute to an understanding of German immigration and German history within the area. And finally, it has contextual value as it remains in its original location within the Cedar Hill neighborhood cultural heritage landscape, and it's surrounded by other early examples of similar style homes. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Jessica. Are there questions for staff? Comments? Yes, Councillor Chapman?
That's just a question. So have the owners been contacted?
The owners have been contacted. They were contacted in May 23rd at the initiation of this project, along with all other listed properties, and then they were independently contacted as well by a direct letter it would have been in January 16th, and I received no response.
So we assume they're okay with this?
That would be the assumption.
Yeah, okay, good, thanks.
Sorry, through you, Madam Chair, I would like to note as well, they will be notified by a third and final letter as per our standard notice of intention to designate procedure, in which case they will then have 30 days to comment.
Now, for the recommendation, Pursuant to Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, the clerk be directed to publish a notice of intention to designate the property municipally addressed as 33 Eby Street South, being of cultural heritage value or interest, as outlined in Development Services Department Report DSD 2024-094. Who would move the recommendation? Elona, thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. Carried. And so it will go to council March 18th. And it's impressive to have this cottage, this Gothic-style cottage from, shall we say, Old Berlin, here to before us to discuss and recommend for designation. Thank you. And now we're at 4.6, Bill 23, Municipal Heritage Register Review, March 2024 update. Diksha will make a presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as part of our Bill 23 Municipal Heritage Register Review, we have two more properties that we've been able to review. The first one is 35 Cortland Avenue West. So this is a 2.5-story building built in the Queen Anne architectural style between 1900 and 1907, located on the east side of David Street between Cortland Avenue West and Hilda Place within the Victoria Park neighborhood. This property is recognized for its design, physical, and contextual value. The design and physical value relate to this building being a representative example of Queen Anne architectural style that is in good condition with many intact original elements, such as its red brick construction, irregular roof plan with multiple roof shapes, pyramidal turret with finial, among other elements. The historical and associative value relates to its original owner and builder and subsequent owner. The original owner was Christian Asmussen, who was a local builder and contractor responsible for many of the homes built in the neighborhood and in Kitchener, then called Berlin. He built a number of residences in the town, including 57 Mill Street, 35 Cortland Avenue West, which is before us, and 18 Church Street, which has since been demolished. The subsequent owner, Edwin B. Dunk, was born on January 3rd, 1872 in Berlin, now Kitchener. He, along with his brother Charles Warmer Dunk, owned and operated the Duncan Company, and was a prominent independent grocer on King Street for 35 years. He was also a member of the Benton Street Baptist Church and was a treasurer for the church for 23 years. He lived in 35 Cortland Avenue West for over 50 years, at least from 1907 until 1958, after which it was vacant for a number of years before another resident moved in. The contextual value of the property relates to its strategic location on a corner lot at the intersection of Cortland Avenue West and David Street. Certain architectural elements of the property, including the pyramidal turret and the wraparound veranda, were strategically designed to complement the corner lot on which the property was built. Staff have determined that the property meets 4 out of 9 criteria under Ontario Regulation 906 and qualifies for designation. The next property that we looked at was 131 Victoria Street South, which is an early 20th century building displaying a modest vernacular example of Ukrainian Baroque architectural style with influences from the Byzantine architectural style. It is located on the east side of Victoria Street South between Teresa Street and Michael Street in the Victoria Park neighborhood. 131 Victoria is recognized for its design, physical, historical, associative, and contextual value. So the property demonstrates design physical value as a rare and unique example of an earlier 20th century religious building, displaying a modest vernacular example of Ukrainian Baroque architectural style with Byzantine influences. The building has many intact heritage attributes in good condition, including clerestory windows, bronze pear-shaped dome, the rooftop cupola topped by a cross. The cornerstone was laid on December 5th, 1926, and blessed by His Excellency Bishop Nikita Bhakta, who was the first bishop of the Ukrainian Catholics in Canada. The subject property has a historical and associative value due to its history and association with Ukrainian immigrants, Kitchener's industrial history. and Mikola Bibniak, a painter who, having lost his hands as a teenager, went on to learn how to paint with his mouth. He painted 18 icons within the iconistas in the interior of the church. The property also has contextual value as it relates to its location and proximity to the church rectory, parish center, the on-site park, and local industries. Staff did an evaluation and determined that the property meets 5 out of the 9 criteria under Ontario Regulation 906 and qualifies for designation. This marks the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Diksha. 2 very good properties that we have before us. Are there any questions of staff? Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, I was just wondering about the church. Have they been approached? I presume they have, and what was the response?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, as part of the initial communication, when we were undertaking the review, the letter was sent out. And once the committee votes on the motion before us, they will be sent another designation package as well. So they have been contacted once, I believe, and once again after this meeting.
So they didn't respond after the first letter?
We have not received any communication from them.
Okay, and I don't know if this is out of line, but under Growing Together, what's the designation for this property?
Through you, Madam Chair, just give us a second, we're looking it up. Through you, Madam Chair, we can follow up with you.
Okay, thank you.
With respect to the church, in our correspondence, is there a need to follow up, say, with an interpreter? I'm questioning about an awareness of the English language and the report that we have. That's why I asked the question.
So through you, Madam Chair, we don't have a provision for that, but if they respond to our communication, that's something we can look into.
Through you, Madam Chair, if we do receive a response, we have the ability to offer translation services in 200 languages. We'd be happy to accommodate that. As we go through all of these designations, we are taking a non-response as no comment and proceeding on. You'll recall that in February of last year, when we developed our work program, we knew that we had to move quickly on these in order to meet our objectives. So we have communicated, and we do communicate at least 3 times with each property owner throughout the process. And again, if we don't hear from someone, we just assume acceptance.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Comments? All right, I will then proceed to the recommendation. Pursuant to Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, the cultural heritage value or interest be recognized and designation pursued as outlined in Development Services Department Report DSD 2024-093 for the following properties: 35 Cortland Avenue West, 131 Victoria Street South. And who would move this recommendation? Donnie, thank you. All those in favor? Carried. So staff, you can pursue what you need to do. Thank you. We'll now come to information item 5.1, Heritage Permit Application Tracking Sheet. And would Jessica or Diksha like to respond?
Through you, Madam Chair, no updates.
Are there any questions for staff with respect to all the designations that we have approved, are waiting for a response? Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Staff, do you have a workload for us coming up?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, we are pulling together some more assignments for field reviews. We've just been holding off for some nicer weather, but we're anticipating bringing forward the next round in April.
Thank you. And for our clerk, you mentioned something about a change with respect to the date of meeting or a meeting.
Yes, Madam Chair. We were hoping that it would be okay for the committee if we were to change the date of our June meeting from June the 4th, which is the first Tuesday, to June the 11th, the second Tuesday of that month. Our Heritage Planning staff have an opportunity to attend a conference on Bill 23 and the different approaches that municipalities are taking, and we'll be presenting and sharing our story as well. So we would, if the committee would be agreeable, we'd be requesting that we could amend that meeting date by 1 week so our staff could participate in that.
Thank you, Garrett. Does anyone have a problem with moving the meeting to June the 11th? Looks like it's satisfactory. Thank you very much. And it's good to have this ahead of time. Are there any other questions, suggestions? If not, could I have someone adjourn the meeting? Thank you, Councillor Chapman. Meeting adjourned.